G'day legends, it's Mark here from North Oz, and in today's video I'm going to be walking you around my new Toyota Landcruiser 79 Series dual cab workmate military. So without further ado, let's get stuck into it. In between filming the taking delivery video of this vehicle a few months ago and now, we've had actually quite a fair few build episodes in between that time, and it's generated quite a fair few comments in the comment section where people are trying to figure out exactly what this is, what sort of features am I getting with this. I've had a lot of questions about things like fuel economy, how much did the vehicle cost me? So in today's video, I really just want to take a kind of snapshot moment in time where we're not too far into the build and show you guys exactly what you are getting for your money. What are you getting with this vehicle from the factory? And for me, it's kind of a point of interest because I wish I knew all of the things and all of the features that you get with this vehicle, or should I say lack of features that you get with this vehicle, because there's a few things in there that I really wish I knew before I purchased this, and a few of them might stump you a little bit too. So we're going to get into all of the details today. I can't wait. It's going to be a good time. So we're going to kick off the walk around with how much I paid for the 79, and straight up I paid $75,100 including GST. Now the cost of 79s lately has been a very big talking point amongst the Land Cruiser community, with people in the second-hand market trying to see how much they're going to get for their V8s and throwing out some pretty crazy numbers as well, and also seeing a lot of those 4 cylinders and a lot more of the 4 cylinders than V8 being brought into the dealership. So it's created quite a few, conversations amongst the Land Cruiser community. Now, so it was $75,100 including GST for the vehicle. Now the factory options, there were none. I didn't really have the option. I just took ownership of the order and I didn't have a chance to put any factory options on it anyway. So it's a workmate, which is the one that I wanted anyway. Good. French vanilla, which is kind of like white. Good. No metallic, no cost. And the vehicle trim is gray vinyl, no carpet, so no cost. And there's no diff lockers on this, again, no cost. Now we're going to talk about now the genuine accessories, and you can see me leaning on the snorkel. Now the snorkel on this is not an added accessory from me. All 70 Series Land Cruisers come with these. So, and it's not really a snorkel, it's more of a raised intake more than anything. It's got lots of different sections in it, and I do need to replace it with a sealed unit. But if you're a Hilux owner like I was, you might look at that and think, well, you've paid for a snorkel, but I haven't. That comes standard with the vehicle. I actually quite like it. It looks good. It's going to be a shame to replace it. But the genuine accessories and what I paid for them was the steel bull bar side rails. So I got these scrub rails on there too, going down 2 side steps. Now Toyota call them some pretty funky things, but the steel bull bar was $2,245.54. So I did have to wait a few weeks for that bar to be made. Toyota were not stocking a lot of these bars at that time because the 2023 model had the pre-collision warning system built into it. And so it's a little bit of a different bar, and they didn't want to keep too many of these around because they had the incoming 2024 models of 70 Series Landcruisers anyway. So you can't really put much in front of the grille and stuff like that because that's where the sensor is, the radar is. So it's just in that little Toyota badge. So the bar did take a few weeks to order and install after I got the vehicle, and also was waiting quite a long time on the tray. So we've got the steel bull bar, our side rails, so that's our option scrub rails. I call them scrub rails or roo bars, whatever you want to call them. So we've got the scrub rails going down to the side steps. Now they're two, they call them funny things. Side rails front pair, so that's probably this section here, is $891.35. And then the side rails, which is basically the side steps, is $731.13. Now, last of the accessories that I ordered to the dealership to be installed was the galvanized heavy duty steel tray. That's just the Toyota genuine tray, had one of those fitted. A bit of warranty reasons I had behind that. I really wanted to make sure that as much as I could, I had, I guess, warranted work done on the vehicle, just as much as I could, because I am going to be using this vehicle in the Outback, and if something goes wrong with it, I can take it into a dealership and have it fixed, as much as I can anyway. So that was a reason why I had that, and I also quite like the look of the genuine tray anyway. So moving on with the fees and the final cost. So we had dealer charges of $1,895. All this includes GST, so I'm not going to add anything on at the end. Stamp duty was $3,348. Registration for 12 months was $866.85. And compulsory third-party insurance was $411.60, which brings the grand total of how much I paid for the vehicle as it sits today, or close to it without any of the other extras that we'll talk about in a second, but out of the dealership, it was $90,200. So just a little bit over $90,000, which is quite a lot to pay for a motor car, but we'll get into why I paid that much very shortly. Before we move on to the design section of the 79 walk-around, can I ask you to click the like button and let YouTube know this is something you have enjoyed, and it will suggest it to other like-minded enthusiasts. We currently have over 80% of people watching these videos that haven't subscribed yet, so if you could subscribe, that would help me out a great deal. I've been told from a few of you guys that you haven't been able to see my new videos in your feed, so make sure the bell icon is also clicked too so you don't miss an episode. I'm making content every week and have just finished filming an off-road review of the 79 Series Landcruiser, so you won't want to miss it. I had a lot of fun making that. Thank you for watching and subscribing, and now let me show you some pretty interesting design choices that Toyota made that are specific just to this vehicle in their lineup. So now that you know how much these things cost, I want to talk about the styling and design of the vehicle. Now, when I say style, I'm not talking about, oh, Toyota did this because it's going to make it look better. There is nothing about this vehicle that Toyota did out of trying to satisfy the end user. It is all specifically designed just to work or as an afterthought to make it work, like the rear track not lining up with the front track of the vehicle. So that's just an example. Now, we'll stick with what we're talking about, which is the styling. We're going to start with that first. Now, the styling and design, something that really drew me to this vehicle was the bonnet. I really love the bulge in the bonnet. It looks so aggressive, and I'm very disappointed that in 2024 they took that away, where it comes up in the front and meets to the high point of the bonnet. But I think that the bulge in the hood just gives a little bit more of an aggressive look and a little bit more of like an aftermarket sort of look. Having said that, the new design 79 is growing on me, but I do prefer this style, which is why I snuck in and got this before the 2024s came out. Now, a couple of things, and I am going to have to make a dedicated video on this later because there's just not enough time in this video to go through it, talking about the comparison between the GXL and this, the Workmate. This has painted sills, and the GXL has chrome sills. This has very little chrome on it. The only chrome it's really got on it is just the door handle. So what I like, and this is something that comes to the design and also the style as well, something that I call modifiability. It's something I've talked about in my previous builds as well. The Prado was fantastic for modifiability, very easy to get parts for, they're not expensive, popular car, and the design of the vehicle just lended to being able to be easily modified. This is exactly the same, if not a bit better, which I did not experience on the Hilux. Everything I wanted to do on the Hilux is a problem. Wanted to install, even 31-inch wheels, but 33s were pretty much an absolute no-no. Couldn't do it. Roof rack on the Hilux, I ended up doing a tub rack because the roof rack was just too hard to do. There was no weather shields that I could use, or the rain tracks that I could use to put a mount in. Nothing. It was all just for show. So there's absolutely no way for me to put a roof rack on that without drilling holes into the skin of the roof, which I was not going to do. But this has sills, which lends very well to modifying. So you can put everything on here, from say visors across the front of the windshield to having a roof rack which just holds onto the side of these sills, and it doesn't have to be like rated to, oh, it can only carry 20 or 30 kilos. A lot of those roof racks are rated really, really high, and I would trust this over just drilling into the roof skin. And even then, the steel on the roof of the Hilux, I would not trust. I would trust this over that anyway. And this actually doesn't have any rubber weather stripping in there anyway. So that's just something to consider as well. And the cost of modifying this vehicle is not a lot. As I explained with the bull bar and the side steps, that was not a particularly expensive thing to do because there's not a lot of sensors in that, guys. Now, that is something in the design as well of this vehicle, is that because there aren't many sensors, there's not a lot of wiring in this vehicle, so that's a big positive as well. Things like your manual side view mirrors, purely utilitarian. There's nothing about this vehicle that is style, related, but I actually do like the look of these. You can find these on like old 80s and 90s Fords and Mazdas, and I think it's a classic look, and I probably will end up keeping them until I get so annoyed because the visibility on them is not great. It is quite a short in height mirror. Now, I really do like the way that they have finished this vehicle off. I think that is finished off better than the previous Toyota vehicles I've had in the past. So I'll give you an example. It is with the door. Now I won't mention the door card because that is very cheap and flimsy. It's just made out of MDF, and I had a little bit of troubles with getting them off and not breaking the MDF around the tabs and the inside of it. The door handle, and I've said this before, makes a terrific noise, and it is very clicky, you can feel the actuation point, which is something that I appreciate. And trying to shut it is not an easy thing. One, it's quite a heavy door, but two, the vehicle seals really well from dust and just air. It's got quite an airtight seal. So that did not actually shut the door. I actually have to give it quite a bit more and then also double check to make sure it shuts, because the amount of times that I've walked away from the car and thought, I didn't actually shut the door properly. I had to go back and give it a harder slam. So that is something that I appreciate about the vehicle, is that it is finished very well. Now, the bull bar I'm going to talk specifically about the bull bar very quickly, is that the bull bar has on the corners the UHF mounts, which I appreciate too, because I can and I did put a UHF aerial on the very far corner of the 79, which means I know exactly where the drop-off point is of my vehicle wherever I am. The one thing I will say about the styling is that these side indicators are hilarious. I'll put them on the screen for you now. They are so big, but also so bright. They light up the side of the road at night when I put my indicator on, and I can be on the other side of the road, and we're talking with street lights and that too. So that will actually light up the side of the road for you. So if you ever need a camping light or something, just flick your indicator on and boom, you've got one. So they are absolutely ridiculous. So I might do something about that in the future if I can be bothered, but for now, who cares? That's fine. So overall, something that really drew me to the vehicle was the styling of it. I like the aggressive look of the big bulge in the bonnet. I like that. One more thing I want to talk about is the wheels. People change the wheels straight away, but I kind of like the look of the wheels. It's just a bit of a shame that the rims are so narrow. So I may have to change out those wheels sooner rather than later. But I do like the look of that gray and kind of cookie cutter, the circles in the rims. It's just a bit of a shame that they're so narrow, but anyway. So, and I guess it's not really styling, but I'm going to get this out of the way anyway, is that the fact that the rear track of this vehicle is narrower than the front, so there are some disadvantages of that as well. On-road, off-road, you guys can look that up, but that is something to consider as well. Am I going to change it at this point? No, I may change it later on in the future after doing a few camping trips and really seeing how badly it affects the handling off-road. Now, something that I thought was quite interesting when they installed these side rails is that they actually maintain the factory side step, which is just a bit of very, very thin aluminium. Yeah, I don't know why they keep that in there, but it is what it is. But yeah, just a fun fact for you. They don't actually remove the factory side steps. The rails actually go around it, which I thought to be pretty interesting. Anyway, let's move on. So we're going to talk about what is possibly the main draw card of this 79 series and of the modern Land Cruiser, which is the V8, the 4.5 litre turbo diesel V8. And it is very underpowered. It has worse response than my Hilux. but the way that it pulls and the way that it uses its power is very different to the 4-cylinder found in the Prado, the Hilux, and now the new 79 Series Landcruiser. And would I change this for the 4-cylinder? Absolutely not. Now, a lot of people ask me, what sort of fuel economy am I getting? Now I get, and this is just from 2 tanks so far, I've got an average of around 10 litres per 100 kilometres. So that gives you a bit of an idea. I reckon that I can get better than that as well if I do a few more extended trips. So that gives you a bit of an idea that stock standard and without too many modifications, these things will do very similar fuel economy to the Hilux and to the Prado under some sort of load. So remember that I do go camping, I do go up and down hills where I do go camping and take the 4-wheel drive quite a fair bit up and down. So it gives you a bit of an idea that, if you're talking about fuel economy, I wouldn't use that as a excuse to get rid of the V8 or to discount the V8 from your purchasing decision. So knowing what I know now, I probably would have jumped at the V8 a lot sooner and not really, been hung up on the idea of that I'm going to get a lot worse fuel economy because I have double the cylinders. So that's just something to consider. In terms of torque and power, yes, the Hilux is more urgent with the power, but the way that this delivers the power is different. And I would take this up and down hills every single day, even in manual form, over the automatic in the 4-cylinder, just because maybe it's the way that the automatic works, but I never liked the way that the automatic, use the automatic transmission that Toyota uses in its Hiluxes, Prados, and 79s. I never liked the way that it actually, went up and down the hills. It would gear way too aggressively and would burn a lot of fuel. So I much prefer, I can pretty much go up and down pretty steep ranges in fourth in this, and it will still pull exactly the same because it's got all that torque from very early on in the rev range. So I hope that gives you a bit of an idea in terms of specs. It's less power and less torque than the 4-cylinder, but the way that it delivers the torque is much different. And if that is a big sticking point for you, you can do the supporting mods to give this thing a whole bunch of power and torque. So if that's something that interests you, the option is there. But for me, I'm happy with the stock figures, and I'll probably keep running this until the warranty runs out, and then I'll probably wind everything up. But yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Now you guys can see that this is our little our pre-collision sensor. It's the radar. I much prefer it in the form of the T of Toyota as opposed to the Toyota lettering and then having the radar underneath it. I think it's a much more cohesive look, and I think that Toyota symbol still looks, old school enough to be able to pass on the grille for this vehicle. So that's obviously personal preference. I haven't had the pre-collision system actually put on brakes or anything for me just yet. It has beeped at me once, but apart from that, I wouldn't even know that it's there. So I'm glad that it hasn't interfered with my four-wheel driving and also driving just yet. So in case those people are wondering, is all this new technology a bad thing? It hasn't really affected the vehicle at all from what I can tell. So we're moving on to the interior now, guys, and I want to start off by saying that you would think a vehicle of this size would have quite a large interior truck and then interior cabin, but it's not. So you get into it, and I almost smacked my knee just then, and I'm going to push my back all the way against the seat so you can kind of see what I'm doing here, and my knee hits the steering column. It also hits this thing on the way in every single time. So you've got to kind of contort yourself to get into the vehicle, and that will happen too because it is a little bit tight to get into this cabin area. So if you are a little bit on the bigger side, you might struggle to get into this cabin. Now, the very first thing that's quite interesting, it does catch quite a few people's attention, is this key. And the key does not have any buttons. It's got no lights. It's got nothing on it. It is just like a old school household or very, very old vehicle key like you used to get on like a 90s Corolla. And listen, that's all that there is to it. These vehicles have got manual pop-up locks. There is no central locking on this vehicle. You can get all this stuff aftermarket if you like. It has got manual winding windows as well. which I actually appreciate because there's less things to go wrong. And that is a very big reason why I purchased the Workmate in particular, is that there is less on this vehicle that can go wrong. The amount of things that I chased up on my old 2001 GU Patrol, I say old, but I mean, that's over 20 years old now, on my Project Patrol, there was a lot that could go wrong. I was chasing up window actuators, there was wiring that wasn't working. So after that, I said, if I can purchase a vehicle that doesn't have any electric, windows or no electric locking, nothing, if I can just keep it simple, then it will save me a lot of hassle if I plan on hanging onto the vehicle for a long time. So there you go. A big reason why I like this Workmate is that everything on it is manual, and the interior, the floor anyway, is vinyl. I've spent countless hours trying to clean the carpet of my Prado and of my Hilux, taking it off-road, even with the fancy 3D molded, floor mats and whatever, the covers and the liners. You still spend time trying to scrub out and trying to get rid of the dirt and all the sand out of the carpet. But with this, because it's vinyl flooring, all you got to do is just vacuum it up or brush it out with a dustpan and brush, which is what I've done quite a fair few times already. Now, talking about the modifiability of these vehicles, and I've already done quite a bit to the interior of this car. And I have put in some aftermarket speakers with an aftermarket speaker door pod. I've put in an armrest with a cup holder, lots of extra cup holders. If you're wondering, on the Workmate, and I'm not sure if you get this on the other vehicles, but on the Workmate door card on the driver's side, you actually don't get a map pocket at all. You only get one on the passenger side, so you don't get any storage in the driver's door. So that's something to consider as well. But these aftermarket door pods, I've equipped a lot of this interior from the Department of the Interior, and I'm going to go through what their pricing was, because that was a question you guys had as well, is what else have I spent on this vehicle? And it's all come from the interior. So I'm going to go through now exactly what I've done extra on this vehicle on the interior and why and how much it cost. So starting off with the first thing that I did, which was a full-length floor console. Now that is worth $1,395. It also has a built-in scan gauge 3, which allows me to monitor the vitals of the engine and of the vehicle, and also clear codes if I do get into a situation where maybe the DPF isn't working properly, and I can clear the codes to at least get it out of limp mode. So that was something that I really wanted. We've also got the front door speaker pods, which were $565. The windscreen shelf was $540. Again, a really handy little spot there to put a bunch of things, especially when you're camping and when you're touring. There is a lot of space up there for you guys to be able to put various things. Especially like snacks, UHF radios, all those extra little things that you just want to have at your easy grasp. Now, the wiring for the speakers for the Workmate is not a particularly easy thing to do. So if you are interested in the Workmate and you want to know how to get speakers into the doors, I did make a very detailed video on that if you want to have a look at it. Now, I've also got some rear side pods in this vehicle as well, so I'll show you those in a minute. And I've also purchased the speakers, which are $160. Those rear side pods are $360. It comes with a neat panel just to neaten up the rear section of the cabin as well. And I've got the one stone armrest for $270. Now, I also did install a GME XRS 370 unit, put a pass-through switch in there as well with a low dBi antenna, so I'm gonna get some really good reception out there, and I'm gonna be able to communicate with all my mates and all the other like-minded enthusiasts and people out there on the roads. And the total for the interior, including the UHF and everything so far, $4,305. And I'm very happy with the interior. It is very ergonomical, and I couldn't be happier with the final result. Now, the head unit for the 79 series is a bit of a running joke, as it is pretty much out of a RAV4 from like 2006. So it does have GPS on it, but it's very, very slow. I can transmit my Spotify to it though. It's got about a 2-second delay. So if you're trying to watch something, that won't work very well. But for me, that's enough. It just plays my Spotify, which will have, podcasts and music and stuff as well. So as long as I can listen to that, I'll probably keep that in there. I may change that out later on if I start to get a little bit annoyed and maybe I want to start using maps a little bit more. At the moment, I don't really use many maps. So if I start getting more into like using Yahima maps and all that sort of stuff, I may change that out for a bigger screen. But for now, I don't really use it for that. I have found that it works very well with the aftermarket speakers that I have in the door, and the sound system sounds incredible. It's all I needed was just some $160 speakers. 1, 2, that's all I'm running. I ripped out the factory speakers. They're just a 4-inch speaker in the dash, and it's just not enough. I mean, it's okay for listening to podcasts, but if you listen to a little bit of music, then I would recommend you just spend a little bit extra money, spend the day installing some speakers, and you'll learn a lot from it as well, just like I did. Now, the interior, another thing that I've done in here is I have added an extension to the gear knob. This is a 5cm extension here, but I would recommend probably going up to the 7.5cm extension. The 75mm is a lot better. I felt with the reason why you get the extension is because you know, when you're sitting far, especially if you're, I guess, a little bit bigger, you're sitting further back in the seat, and the gear shift knob is really low down. So I found myself at this constant angle all the time to be able to reach the gear knob. So just 5cm is enough to kind of get you back in your seat. But I would probably go for a little bit bigger as well. Now with the center console, I do have to get a gear shift extension as well for the transfer case as well, so I can put it into 4-wheel drive. So I will be getting that as well in the very near future. Now, one thing I actually do appreciate is the air conditioning in here is absolutely unreal. It does have the iconic crutch cooler down here as well, which, you know, on a hot day, you definitely notice the difference with that on. And you also have these very standard, but so I reckon that they are still the best way to air condition a vehicle. And it's these moving fins that also can rotate around. So I think that is I reckon that is the best way to cool a car. You get a lot more flexibility with those vents for sure. A lot of people have complaints about 2 things about this vehicle. Is one, the way it drives, but I think if you are new to Land Cruisers, there is definitely a way to drive them, and it's taken me about 1,500 kilometers to figure it out. It's kind of like, you know, you want to rev out first a little bit more. You want to kind of give it a little bit more beans around the corners as well. There's just a way that you can drive the vehicle that makes it drive a little bit smoother. It's very hard to explain to someone who maybe hasn't driven in a Land Cruiser for a long time. And I could definitely see why someone might get into a Land Cruiser and think, you know what, this car is a pile of rubbish. It doesn't drive well. It's not very comfortable. And, you know, there's no features in it. So I could definitely see, that perspective as well. Now, the seats in this vehicle, I find them very comfortable. Now, I haven't done any longer than 2 hours in the vehicle for a drive yet, but when I'm doing the longer trips, I'll definitely get back to you. But for now, I think that they suit me fine. They are, again, a bit on the small side, but I find the cushioning quite nice. And the fact that on the Workmate, you get the vinyl with absolutely no cloth or anything, it means that if you have pets and stuff in the car, you just vacuum and brush everything off, which I think is just fantastic. It does get a little bit hot, especially if there's direct sunlight on these vinyl seats, or it gets hot, but you know, you get used to it pretty quick. So you know, I'd say that if you're that worried about it, make sure you got your windscreen visors up, and you maybe have a towel across the seat or something. But for me, I really appreciate the vinyl seats. It just makes everything so much easier to clean and also keep clean, and I do find them quite comfortable. Now, everyone complains about cup holders. Well, guess what, guys? I have got so many cup holders in here because the aftermarket is filled with them. It's like every time you buy something for your 79, it like includes a cup holder. So I got a center console, and it's got 2 cup holders. I got door speaker pods. They have cup holders. I got armrests. They have cup holders, and I got rear door pods, or you know, rear side pods, and they also have cup holders. So there you go. So that's a little bit of a funny thing, a little bit of a running joke with people who have Land Cruisers, is that there's no cup holders. Well, now I have too many to count. I don't know how many cups you guys have, but just one was fine for me anyway. But that kind of covers the interior, guys. If you have any questions about it, just let me know down in the comments. Let's jump in the back of the 79 now and see if I fit, but we'll see what is in the back there as well, and if it's a reasonable place for someone to sit for a decent period of time. So moving into the rear of the interior, and there is actually quite a bit of room, and it's actually quite easy to get into. I have a lot of headroom here, and I don't think anyone will probably fill out that headroom unless they have a large torso. And in terms of knees, my knees touch the back of the seat, and that seat is as far back as it can go. So for a 3 or 4 hour trip, I mean, I reckon that people could probably suck it up for a bit. As long as you have a break for a little bit, I think it'll be fine. But if you are traveling long distances, like day after day, and you've got people in the back, and they're not small children, then I'd say probably look at a different vehicle. I really do like these Department of the Interior as well. These side pods, it comes with a nice panel as well. There's like this ugly MDF panel that sits in the back there, and it gives a little bit of storage as well. So you can put your phone in there, and you've got another cup holder, because there aren't any cup holders back here. So that's fair enough. So you got a cup holder back there. You can put your bottle, whatever it is that you got there, in the back, and it's actually not a bad place to be. The seats are very similar to the front. Good seating position. You sit up quite high as well, so you got a good look of the road. And that's something that I didn't mention. There's just so many things to mention in these vehicles, is that you sit so high up and you have a really commanding view of what's going on around you. So you can see all down the side of the vehicle. My dog is only very small, so she can see out of the vehicle as well. And you're sitting very high up, so you can see exactly what is down and around you, which makes off-roading a lot safer as well. Now, this is something that, again, not a lot of people know, is that the Workmate comes standard with 33-inch diameter tire. They are a very narrow tire, but they are still a 33-inch tire, and they are a lot more aggressive off-road all-terrain tire than the ones that are supplied on the GXL. So, which is more like a highway terrain sort of tire. So these come standard with the Bridgestone Jewelers. It's an all-terrain. It is rated for a light truck. For now, this does have a 33-inch tire, and you can legally go up to a 35-inch tire. And yes, that's just something that's just a little bit of an interesting piece of information, that these Workmate wheels are quite a decent size tire. So yes, you can fit 33s on it because it comes standard with them. Now that we've talked about the price, the interior, the styling, the design, the wheels, let's now talk about the tray. Let's back the car in. Let's hear how this V8 sounds, and we'll talk about that heavy duty tray, and we'll see what you guys think of it. Now, a couple of things that I didn't mention as well is that this vehicle does have a DPF, so I can rev the 79 in the carport and not be absolutely fumed out of here. So that's something as well to consider, is that I have never had an issue with DPFs in my vehicle. I have done between me and my parents, we have done around 40,000 kilometers in DPF vehicles, and we haven't had any issues with one yet. Fingers crossed. So I do have the Scan Gauge 3 in the center console, so I can still use that to clear some codes to get me to a dealership if I need to get the DPF sorted out. So just in case you guys know, I actually don't mind the DPF. I haven't had any issues, but I actually don't mind the DPF because it does make working on the vehicle a lot easier. If I need to turn the car on or something, I don't get absolutely smashed with fumes. So let's talk about as well, one more thing. You would have noticed as I was backing the car in, I was doing these ones, and that's because it doesn't have a rear camera. Not particularly hard to mount up, and the stock head unit does have a provision for that anyway, so I can get a aftermarket camera. It's not a particularly difficult thing to do, but I just haven't gotten around to it just yet. We'll see. I'll probably get around to it after I hit something, I'd say, but for now, it's pretty easy to see around and out of this car as well. If I get a canopy on the back of this, I probably will end up getting a rear view camera, obviously, but for now, I can pretty much see everything that I need to. And if I'm a bit unsure, it just takes you 2 seconds to get out and run around and have a look. All right, now this standard Toyota tray, I would say, although I like it, it is, I wouldn't say the best made tray out there. It is a heavy tray to begin with, so I would say, yeah, keep that in the back of your mind. Now, you also have to unlock this side first. So you have to unlock the back section and its bracket. See, that's not the best thing. And I've had issues with keeping this this kind of spring-loaded lever in place as well, so you kind of just got to balance it there as well. Now this bracket has to come down first as well before I can get around to the side and then put that down. Now these sides do come off as well. If I want to take them off, I can, but that is just something that's just a little bit annoying, is that, you know, there's a few little things on here that makes me think that, you know, maybe I should have spent a little bit extra money and gotten a different tray. You know, is it because of the way it was put together? I don't know. And I am already starting to see some signs of rust on the vehicle. I'm not sure if it's because, if it's because the tray was scraped in certain sections when they were assembling it. I don't know, but just a few little things I've seen on it. I'm just like, oh, I'm not too sure if, you know, this is a tray I'll hang on to forever. But it is a pretty, like it says, heavy duty tray. It's not the prettiest thing, but it does get the job done. And, you know, I don't mind the look of it, but probably something that I might change in the future. Now, to do, I guess, with the tray a little bit, is this is a heavy tray, but to do with that is the ride quality. So how does this vehicle ride with this tray, but also just in general? And I feel like that this has a very, I would say, even softer ride than the Hilux. And that's a pretty big call, because the Hilux ride's pretty nice, but it is a firmer, more sporty, I guess, ride. This is a softer ride. It is louder in the interior, and if you are someone that doesn't do well with somewhat loud interior noise, I would recommend getting a sound deadening kit, or you can get pinch weld kits as well to reduce the wind resistance. That is something that can get a little bit annoying. But the interior, I find, is not an uncomfortable place to be, and I think the suspension as well is pretty good, considering people give it a lot of rubbish for being just a farm truck. I think that that's a very, overgeneralized and you know, very often thrown around term. It's not just a farm truck, in my opinion. I think it works. It's a little bit more sophisticated than that, and the suspension works quite well. Now, on the topic of the farm truck, and it kind of leads me to one of my final points, and I guess my concluding thoughts is, why did I spend all of this money on a 79 series, which is, I mean, I guess in some people's views, and I guess in some ways it is basically an old farm truck. And one of the main reasons, and I've already mentioned it, is, and you've picked up on it, I guarantee it, is the simplicity of this vehicle. There is not a lot of wiring going into it. If you look at the new vehicles with all the door sensors, airbag sensors, seat sensors, front sensors, rear sensors, it's a lot of wiring and it's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. I like the fact that this doesn't have electric windows. It's got the old wind-up windows, which my nephew absolutely loves. He has a great time with that. First thing he does when he comes over here is he winds up and down the windows and he plays with the lock. So I think, and it is, I do the same thing as well. I can't blame him. So I think it's kind of like a bit of character to the vehicle as well, but it just kind of demonstrates the simplicity of the vehicle. It's something that I appreciate about it. And it's kind of a funny thing now, but we're getting to a point in motoring and, you know, and in vehicles where people are spending more on vehicles to get simplicity. And that's a very strange thing, because these vehicles back in the day, people wouldn't look at them because they don't have any features. But now people are actually looking for these vehicles. There's so few of them. People are looking for these vehicles to, and they're spending the money to try to get back to that simplicity. I'll use an example of the Ineos Grenadier, and people are buying those vehicles, and that's a $130,000 vehicle. And you can throw around, well, that's just a simple vehicle, you know, it's just a simple farm truck. Well, it's, you know, a bit more refined than this, of course, but I mean, that's a lot of money, like 130-ish grand, whatever it is. That's a lot of money to spend on a vehicle at all, but you haven't even started putting on the things that you like. At least with these vehicles, yes, they probably up around 85,000 now before you put trays and stuff on them. But that still gives you about 30-ish grand to put into the vehicle, and at least you then get what you want. So if it was me in today's, you know, climate with, you know, we've got the Ineos coming out, and we've got the 76 and 79, 78 series of the Troopy, you've got these vehicles, what would I go with? And I would still go with the Landcruiser at this point. I don't think you can beat the, and then you've also got the Mahindras as well. You still can't beat, the argument for the reliability of Toyotas has kind of gone out the window since DPFs and other things have happened. People don't seem to really mention that much anymore with these vehicles, but you just can't beat support from the remote communities and the remote garages If you go into any of those garages, they know how to work on these vehicles. You talk to anyone who has done a lap of Australia recently, you take in a Land Cruiser and you take in a Ford Ranger and you tell me who will get in to get fixed first and which one will have the parts available, which vehicle will have parts available to be fixed sooner. And I guarantee it's going to be the Toyotas, because there's just so many of them around and all the boys have been running them for a long time. Very similar running gear to what they've been running since 2007, and you really just can't beat part availability. It's just something that you just, you can't review that. You can't do a comparison of, oh, well, you get into an Ineos or you get into a Mahindra and you think, well, why am I spending all this money on a Land Cruiser? And the people who have the Land Cruisers, the people that buy them, they are probably a bit clued in as to, the benefits of that, especially going remote, which is a big reason why I purchased this vehicle. This is going to be my Lap of Australia vehicle, and I need it to perform well in my Lap of Australia and when I'm doing my remote trips anyway, especially Cape York trip. I've got coming up in a few months. But at the end of the day, guys, you need something that's going to work. And if it does break, can it be easily fixed? That's pretty much my main thoughts leaving you with this, is that this is a simple vehicle. I've only done a few mods to it, but I already know how to take apart most of the interior. It's very simple, stuff you can figure out by yourself very simply. And there's a lot of parts available for them, whether you want to do aftermarket stuff or whether you need to fix this, in the nearest, community you can drag it to, or the nearest town, or the nearest city you can drag it to. Now, where the argument might come in, where you think, well, maybe a 79 series isn't right for me. If you spend 99% of your time, you're not doing really remote travel. If you spend most of your time using it as a runabout, or you're around major cities and that, I would say, yeah, maybe go with your Mahindras if you want to save a bit of money. Maybe go with some of those cheaper vehicles if you can have your vehicle out of action for a little while, or if you are happy to wait for parts. Save yourself a lot of cash doing it that way. But if you're someone who needs to have the vehicle around and you can't afford to have it off the road and you need to use it as your primary form of transportation and you're going remote, there's just no other solution. You have to have one of these. And that's my opinion, and that's what I'm going to leave you guys with. But I'd love to hear your opinions down in the comment section. Feel free to argue with me if you want. I always appreciate the new thoughts and that. I'm always thinking about it. I don't get offended. I always think about these ideas that you guys are throwing around too, because I am open to these suggestions that you also have. But for me, what can I say about this vehicle other than that I absolutely love it? I was a little bit, I guess, I wouldn't say upset, but I was a little bit hesitant when I first got the vehicle. I was a little bit, I was a little bit underwhelmed, I think is the word, when I first got the vehicle, because I thought, oh no, I have made a bit of a mistake here. I've purchased a $90,000 vehicle and it doesn't have many features, and not many other people are buying these vehicles. But but I think that as time has gone on, and I did make the right decision, I am happy with my choice. And that's something that I thought I'll leave that with you guys as well, is that going with a very manual vehicle, going with something that not a lot of people are buying, and kind of breaking the trend is not an easy thing to do. And bucking the trend, I think, is the word. And it's not an easy thing to do, and there's a reason why it's difficult to do, because other people aren't doing it. And other people will probably look at you and think, you don't even have power windows. What are you doing spending all this money on a car? But for me, I hope that I've explained why I have made the choice that I've made, and I hope that it gives you maybe a bit of insight and some perspective as to whether this is something for you or not. So thank you for joining me today, guys. I'll see you, I'll say next video, because next video is probably going to be sooner than a week. So I'll see you guys next video. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to sharing my thoughts on this vehicle going forward, and sharing with you what I have planned for this vehicle in upcoming episodes. Now, on that, if you haven't seen the planned video for this vehicle, I'll leave a link to this at the end of this video as well. But I'm looking forward to sharing with you the next phase of this build. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for joining me. See you then.